Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds for sharing and learning from one another. It's a vibe. We do Rosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, taking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out.
Tala Falava and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. I am really excited to introduce today's guest. It has been so long since I have seen her, so I cannot wait to share her journey and what she has been up to all these years. She is a mother, she is a creative, a performer, she is a singer-songwriter, and she released her latest single, Rose Tints, a few months ago. Joining us from Tamaki Makaurau in Aotearoa, welcome to the show, Chantal Samuela. Woohoo!
Oh, thank you. My gosh, what an intro.
Man, how are you, sis? It's so good to see you.
Oh, so good to see you too. I just feel like we're having a good catch up. I'm
For
really
real.
good. And how are
Man,
you over in Japan?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a Saturday morning here. The weekend. Gotta love the weekend because busy week at school. So weekends are actually when I do the podcast stuff, which I love to do. So I mean, I'm not mad. I'm not mad or tired or anything. I'm just really excited to be able to talanoa with you today. What's the weather like in Auckland right now?
Oh, it's actually not too bad currently, but like the last couple of days it's been pouring down. We're heading into
Oh
summer.
no.
Oh, come on. Today it seems to be holding up. There's some clouds out there, but there's some blue sky as well.
Yes, we need that weather to hold out for all the Toa Samoa parades that are going on today. By the time this interview drops next week, who knows what's going to happen in the game, but all the best to Toa Samoa. 685 to the world, hashtag.
You know what? I just found out yesterday that I'm actually part Samoan. Only a little bit, but so I might go grab me some flags for my car after this.
You better, girl, you better go grab those flags. And I guess that leads us on to our next part. Before we get into this talanoa, before we do the catch up, Chonny, if you could give just a brief introduction for our audience.
Cool. So I'm Chantal Samuela. I grew up in Otorohanga. My mother is Palangi and my dad is from Ngatangi Ia Rarotonga and Kimia Ngatau Akutuka Manawa Moke and apparently Samoa. So I grew up in Otorohanga, which is, I think we were one of maybe 3 island families down there. So I didn't really grow up amongst my Pacific Island people. And I gravitated, I think, more to hang out with Maori people, which I love. But yeah, when I moved up to Auckland, that was in 2008. That was really refreshing for me because I was like, oh yes, there's some polys here. But that's me.
Does that mean that you were involved in like kapahaka and things like that?
I did kapahaka at primary school and started to at secondary school, but it clashed with some of my other things that I had going on. But yeah, that was definitely a part of it. And then I think that I feel like I missed out on quite a lot because now as a mother and with my children growing up in Tamaki, like my daughter went to Mangere Bridge School for a while, and my gosh, they're doing all their island dances. They celebrate the cultural language weeks all the time, really, really well. And I'm like, oh, I wish that I could have had some of that, but I'm glad that my kids do.
Yeah, that's cool. And then in terms of, your Cook Island side, like how, you mentioned moving to Auckland in 2008. So were you you're in like Auckland, which is, hello, multicultural city. Were you finding opportunities to connect with your Cook Island side, or was it just really a hodgepodge of like cultures that you were like connected to?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a hodgepodge, eh?
Mm.
Because when I first moved up, I went to film school to study on-screen acting, and there weren't really many PIs there either. So again,
Mm.
I kind of gravitated towards the Māoris. But then it was after that, when I joined Phoenix,
Mm.
um, when I got to be around more Pacific Island peoples. And then, yeah, since then it's just been, you know,
Before that move to Auckland, like how did you know that, like what was that thing that clicked in you, like this is what I want to study, I want to go into performing arts, I'm interested in film. What was that one moment as a teenager when you realized that?
I think it became instilled in me when I was actually 4 years old.
4 years old.
Yeah, I have this memory. So my very early years were spent in a little village called Karamea, which is on the
Mm.
west coast of the South Island. And we had some family down there as well from my Cook Island side. Um,
Mm.
and they put on the tiny little school, it was just one school down there. My dad was a teacher there, and we lived on the school property. And the tiny little school put on their school production. And, you don't have many memories of when you're 4, but I just remember being at that school production. They did it over 3 nights, I think, and I got to go to 2. I just remember being in that audience, and I was just like in awe. And my older cousin, she played Mary, and she was singing like I Don't Know How to Love Him and
Mm.
all the songs. And I was just like, oh, this is so amazing. And I was like that feeling. I was like, I love this so much. And I wasn't allowed to go to the 3rd night, and I was just like beside myself. I was in tears
Mm.
because I was so passionate about it from that moment. And I'd go into the backyard and do my own one-man show of it, I think it was from then that I knew that that's really what I wanted to do. I think as you get older and you become a teenager, it changes a little bit, and you lose
Mm.
confidence. It's not the normal thing to do, and of course, growing up in a small town is definitely not the normal thing to do. So I took like a gap year and went into Camp America. Um,
Oh,
yeah, which was
wow.
It was really just a filler-inner because I was
Mm.
trying to I felt like pressure, like, what am I gonna do? So it was like a thing that I could go away and then think about it. When I came back, I was like, "No, I'm just gonna try this." Yeah.
Man. So you weren't a shy kid then?
I was a shy kid, at times.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think, um when you think of actors or performers or artists, you can think of them as quite crazy, extroverted, right? Like you think, oh, an actor, oh, they're so weird, they're so
Mm.
out there. And a lot of them are, yes. And I think that to a certain degree, we are all crazy, but I don't think that we're all extroverts.
Mm.
I think I for myself anyway, I feel like I need to create a safe space for me to go
Mm.
to that place. Um, so yeah, sometimes I was shy, sometimes I was not. It just really
Mm.
depended on the vibe.
Mm. And then who were some of your role models? You mentioned growing up in a small town, role models or mentors that you looked up to.
Yeah, I think my biggest mentor, and I never would have told him at the time. I would tell him now, but it was my dad.
Mm.
Um, he was a very musical man. He played the guitar, he sang, he was in bands, um, and he loved that stuff. And so he would teach me like the guitar, he would make me sing with him. Um, and yeah, he always encouraged like my love for performance or music or whatever it was that I was trying to do. He was also a teacher at my high school, which I hated. So when he was a teacher when I was little in Karamia, I loved it. Like every playtime or lunchtime, I'd find my dad and walk around the school with him holding his hand. At high school, no.
You're like, please leave me at the gate. Let's go our separate ways and don't talk to me.
Don't know me. Why are you coming to talk to me?
Oh.
But he was a teacher at my high school, and he was also quite involved in the music there. And I remember there was a talent show, and he put a band together. And at the time, I was learning to play saxophone, so I played the saxophone. And not many PIs, but he said that we're going to play Nisha Mystic, Unity. I was like, yo, jam. And he called our band the Green Bananas.
Oh, man.
Polly in there. But yeah, I think we came first. We were good anyway, I think. But yeah, so he was always that guy. He played in the local band, so I'd love going to watch rehearsals with him, and then they'd play like on a truck at the fairs or whatever. So yeah, I always looked up to him. My music teacher was really good as well, because I used to just wag a lot of my classes and go hang out
in the music department.
Yeah. So I think it was my dad was probably my biggest mentor growing up.
And were you in any bands like coming up through school?
I don't think we had like a specific band. I think it was more like when we had to do group performances and things like that, we'd have to create a band. But no. Yeah.
When did you start writing? I mean, naturally you just gravitated towards singing and you were playing instruments, but when did you start writing your own music? Like, was it from that young age? Were you a student who carried a notebook to jot down any love notes or anything like that? Were you that type of musician, or or was it later in life that you kind of like sat down and started taking it a bit seriously?
I think once we had to actually do composition as a part of the curriculum is when I had to give it a go, because there's fear there. It's a scary thing to do. And so when I did that, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I can actually write a song. Oh yeah. And so that was fun. And then I just did a couple of little things undercover, I think. I remember a friend at high school, she was like having a rough time with a guy, and she had written him like a letter and asked me to turn it into a song. So I did that. That was fun. I think I still remember that. And then I think I lost some of that confidence once I moved up to Auckland and just surrounded by all these amazingly talented people. I kind of shied away from it again. And then my brother became a phenomenal muso / producer / guitar player. And yeah, so people at Phoenix, Gibbs, my soul brother, just so great that I was like, oh, I just, closed myself off to that. I was like, people will laugh at me if I try and do that. So it's not until the recent, and so I started doing more poetry, I guess. But so it's not until the most recent years that I've gone back into writing songs. Yeah.
Oh. Were you much of a reader? As a young Chonny, were you much of a reader or not so much?
Yeah, I was a big reader. When I was at primary school, me and my friend who lived across the road, we were like so nerdy. Our favorite thing to do when we hung out was we would walk downtown to the library, hang out in the library for ages, and then carry a plastic bag full of books each home and we'll go to the dairy and get like some lollies and stuff, and we'd be walking and reading our books.
I'm laughing, but I'm not judging. I'm laughing because I'm like, oh, it's so nice to know that other people did that too. Okay, we're good.
And then we'd get back to each other's house and hang out reading. So we weren't even talking to each other. We were just like so content and happy to be in each other's company reading. And then at primary school, I loved to be the library monitor. There was a group of friends who would go to the library with at lunchtime and like tidy up the library, put the books away. Yeah, I loved reading growing up. And as I got older, my focus switched a bit, but I'm back to it now, which is nice.
Yeah, no, I laugh because I'm like, I definitely was that kid who was always trying to get to know the librarians so that they could get order the books that I was like, dropping hints like, from the catalog, look at these books. So yeah, no, I'm laughing because I'm like, oh, that resonates with me so much.
Yeah.
Man. And so, now as a parent, do you read to your kids? Do you spend time to read or share books with your kids? Or
Oh, now I sound like a bad parent. Not good. Really not as much as I should. I think what we've been doing recently though is I've remembered that the library exists and you don't have to actually buy books. So one of our outings that we've done a few times recently is to go to the library and find some books. And yeah,
that's so cool because I don't even think it needs to be done with force. The library's there. It's more just choice, giving them choice and planting that seed, like not necessarily going, you must read this, but that love for books will grow, if you're in that environment and stuff. So that's so cool. That's really cool. Yeah. And then what are some important values or lessons, when you think about your elders, your parents, that they taught you as parents that you now kind of draw on as a parent yourself?
I think one of the most important lessons, and this might sound negative, but my parents were such amazing people and they've taught me so much. But I think what I feel most urgently now is because they've both passed away. I think it was by the time I was 30, I'd lost both my parents. And I feel like maybe if they'd taken better care of their health, then they'd still be here. So I think that the most important lesson there to know is that life really is short. It's like no joke. Like we don't have time to muck around. It's actually short. And that your health is your wealth. So if you don't have your health, then you really don't have anything. And I think that it's something that's not talked about enough, especially among our people. But I think that it needs to, because I think that we do lose a lot of our people to health issues that could be, worked on. So I think that's something that I'm really trying to take on board. Or it's been a big wake-up call for me. Because I'm not perfect either, but I'm trying to. I've got my own health issues, so I've got 2 autoimmune conditions that have impacted my life quite significantly in terms of quality of life. They're not life-threatening, but they can make life very difficult. So I'm really trying to work on being at the best place in my health that I can be for myself, firstly, and then for my children, so I can be there for my children, and then also hoping that they will see that lifestyle and pick that up as well without trying to like preach and as you say, force the buzz.
When we think about the workforce, there are usually, there are always different career pathways. There's always conversations around woman, inequality in terms of like wages and, thinking about maternity leave and, sometimes the pressure to not even have kids or have kids at a later age because it can affect your career, as a working mom or working woman. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on, these conversations and yeah, in regards to, just working moms and getting back out into the workforce and things like that?
Yeah, I do think it is hard for women. Um, and I do know personally that it's hard to get back
Mm,
out into the workforce because I took some time to, be a stay-at-home mum. And then, like
mm,
I said, I had my health issues at a point. So there was times when I was like quite bedridden. And so I lost a lot of my confidence there. So I think, yeah, in terms of stay-at-home mums transitioning back into the workforce, it would be nice to have some more support around that.
mm,
Um, and then, yeah, once I did get back into the workforce, it was in film and TV. So I dabbled in like a bit of production, transcribing bits and pieces, and then landed in costume. So working on set. And when you're working on set, you're working long, long hours and weird hours, and it's very taxing
mm,
on an individual, but also on a family. And so I
mm,
think um, sometimes mothers can find that hard to do. Thankfully, I've got a very supportive fiance who like would take the load while I was on set doing those contracts. But
mm,
I have heard, like, I remember even hearing somebody say, in terms of a job on set, "Oh, she's got kids, so she won't be able to." And, they're
mm,
making that choice for them before. I'm like, I think that she should be able to choose that for herself and, figure out how to make it work. But, yeah, and I think that the people I've worked with who have been most supportive have been, in the Māori and
mm,
Pacific Island communities because we know that it takes a village. So grateful for that. But yeah, I do think it's hard, and
mm,
especially society today, and especially when you're living in the city, it's on the grind. Everybody is running around like headless chickens, and that's accepted. That's meant to be the norm, and so yeah, it can be hard to juggle everything. I know some mamas who are out there like really doing it, and
mm.
they're amazing. But yeah.
So then, having recently stepped back into the scene, the performing arts scene, what have you noticed, the things that are perhaps still the same or have changed since, from what you remember, when you first kind of entered the scene?
Mm. I think I think and I hope that there are that more opportunities are coming up for our people and are becoming more accessible.
Mm,
Um, and I mean, we've got such amazing stories to tell, and the ones that are being told at the moment are so great. And I just hope that that flourishes. Um,
mm,
I mean, like, we had the likes of Muru, Fina. I haven't seen Fina yet.
mm,
We're Still Here, which I was lucky enough to work on. Um, and then we've got Red, White, and Brass to look forward to, all on our big screens. So that's great. And then we had like the big theatre productions. So we had like Dawn Raids and Pacifica the Musical on simultaneously at two of the
mm,
biggest theatres in our city, at the ASB Waterfront Theatre and at the Civic. And they were amazing. So I think and I hope that doors are opening up more. Yeah.
mm. Do you think is it hard? Like, if you think about, if you were speaking to young people, young folks now, who are perhaps wanting to get into the industry, what would you say to them? Because is it a hard industry to break into as a Maori and Pacifica person, or do you need to have a lot of connections? Is it like, how does it work from your experiences?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still really trying to do that myself.
Mhm.
But I think it's hard, but I think
Mm.
anything worth pursuing is hard. And so I think
Mm.
it's about being persistent, and just as long as your mind is focused on something, then you're gonna go there, right? So there's
Mm.
no obstacles, but you're just gonna, like, there's no other direction. You're gonna go there. I do think it's hard, but I do think persistence is what you need, and just commitment to what you want to do. And every day trying to do something that's going to baby step lead you in that direction. And yes, I do think that connections are important.
Mm.
And it also gives you support as well. So I think like I've recently joined with Bisa, the Pacific Island screen
Yeah.
artists, and they're just amazing, and so what a great place to make connections, and also support network and friends and people that you could potentially work with in the future. So I think it's about finding those kinds of communities
Mm.
that you can be in consistently, so you're not feeling like you're just out there on your own. Um, and then it doesn't feel as hard either, because other people are doing it with you, or you're watching their journeys and you're inspired by them, so you feel more uplifted than
Mm.
you know
Is
yeah.
there, as someone who is still trying to break into the industry, find your feet? I mean, is there money in, whether you're in front of the camera or behind the camera doing behind the scenes work, which is very important? Uh, is there money in that in New Zealand, from what you know?
Oh man, I hope so.
Are we listening, folks? For anyone out there in the industry?
I'm really taking a hit on it. I think my partner hopes so too. um yeah, I think in terms of, so behind the camera, I think the it's easier to have more consistent work, because there's so many productions going on in New Zealand, which is amazing. And so I think you can get that ticking along
Mm.
quite nicely. In terms of being in front of the camera, I think it's every actor's kind of dream or want to have consistent work. And
Mm.
I think that sometimes is not always the reality. So I know that a lot of the actors I know also have a 9 to 5 or a side hustle, or
Mm.
something else going on as well. But yeah, I really do hope there's money out there.
For anyone listening, hint, hint.
Yeah.
And then you've had a few roles you've mentioned, and I was wondering, what has been something fun or really enjoyable? What, out of those roles, what have you enjoyed the most, or perhaps learned the most from?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had a few little bits and pieces this year. Um, baby steps, but I'm so grateful for those as well. It's any opportunity, even to just be on set and to
Mm.
observe the actors working, is beneficial to me, I believe. You can observe the actors working, you can observe the director actor relationships, their different methods, or um, so yeah. But I feel like my favorite times have actually been offset and off stage at
Mm.
the moment. Like, a lot of them have taken place in workshops or classes, and it's about moments, I think, for actors, when you
Mm.
really feel it. It's like, so I think some of the most powerful moments I've had have been in those spaces. Um, and I also loved some of the stuff that we did with Phoenix. So Phoenix and Hawaii too collaborated, and we got to do Te Manawa. And I loved playing the role of the mama on there. That felt quite powerful for me. And but yeah, and then being on set this year, like I was on Shortland Street for just like one episode, a handful of scenes, a few lines, but just even watching the flow there, because I know that it's like the fastest turnaround show I think in the world, which is crazy. And just watching how they have to go like this. And I know that a lot of actors can find that quite hard. They've got so many scenes to do. They've got lines, blah, 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 and can maybe lose, their characters sometimes in a way. But just watching and learning from them, because if one day I end up on there,
right?
a good little look,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I actually when you mentioned Shortland Street, I was reminded because I had Gazelle, she's one of the, I think she's one of the directors on Shortland Street. She was a guest on the show. She's really cool. She's also a writer. You should connect with her. She's a really awesome person. For real. You just reminded me when I was listening to you and I was like, oh, Gaz, I gotta connect you guys, man. She's a beautiful person. She's a writer. She's Iranian. She's from Iran, but grew up in Aotearoa. She's Kiwi, but I was just like, man, I think you guys will get along. Let's get connected. Let's connect you guys. So dream role. Like if you could just, man, think like a dream role as an actress. What would that be? Or even behind the scenes, like director or producer.
I definitely don't want to be a producer. I'm not as organized as a producer needs to be. I admire them so much, man. They have to put in so much work. A dream role for me, I need to actually, good question, because I should really like set a clear picture on this so I can like put that intention out there. But I think for me, I really love the stories that are raw and powerful and moving and deep and talk about some of the hard truths. Yeah, I would, maybe I can be a bit melodramatic sometimes, but yes, I would love to be on like a feature, maybe a true story, and yeah.
Do you have any favorite actresses or actors? Do any? Yeah.
I think growing up, I really admired Cliff Curtis. He is amazing, and then he just has such a huge range as well. And then Taika's awesome. I like it's probably not my favorite. Like I probably think of others that would be more, but I really like Melissa McCarthy.
Oh yes.
She's yeah, but I can't think of any. I don't have like specific.
Right. A favorite movie? What type of movies do you like? Because I feel like that's a question we're gonna ask people in this industry, man.
Yeah. So I really love our local content. I think we have such a charm and it's so fun. And then also we can tell our stories in a way that, we're talking about some deep stuff, but we also, have that charm there as well. So I love our local content overall. I think it's great. But favorite all-time movies are probably like when I was a kid, it was The Sound of Music. Then when I was at high school, it was Dirty Dancing. I wagged a week of school and had the DVD and just like had it on repeat. And I think just after high school, it was Moulin Rouge. So yeah, they're all musicy, dancey things. And it's funny because the first time I ever watched Moulin Rouge, I didn't like it. I was like, oh, that's weird. It's a bit out the gate. But then I ended up watching it again and I was like, oh, I love this. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like moving to Hollywood or moving, to overseas to explore, just to get into, I don't know, just to check out the industry in a different country? Like, have you ever had those opportunities? just like even now, I know you have a family and everything, but I was just wondering,
Yeah. I wouldn't rule out like going to Hollywood if there was an opportunity for that.
Mm,
However, I feel very much like I love what we do here. And so I feel very content and happy to be here and hopeful that I can create and perform in this space.
mm,
But yeah, I would never turn down the opportunity. Like if something came up, then I would be open to that. And I mean, like my brother with his music, he was living in LA and Hollywood. So I know that that's there, and it's hard, but man, don't rule anything out.
that's so cool, man. I want to talk about Chantal Renee, which is Chonny, the singer, songwriter, the artist. How would you describe your sound? Like the type of music that you make? Is it do you describe it as something, or you don't really want to be like bogged down by one style? Do you know?
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. So Chantal Renee I've recently changed my name to Chonny.
Mm,
Well, first of all, Chantal Renee is my first and middle name, but
yes.
I had French people messaging me all the time because they're French names.
So they're like, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so, and then because I never get called that in my world, I felt like Chonny was more me.
Yeah.
But Chantal Renee, so the songs that I released under Chantal Renee,
Mm,
there were 3 songs. There was Secrets, then
mm,
Read My Mind, and then I Pray, which is a spoken word / song.
mm, mm,
The first 2 I produced on my own, and I definitely think that I have a unique sound in terms of what I create. I create a more of a I don't know what it's called. I'd maybe call it like an alternative
mm,
R&B something, but it's definitely experimental
mm,
alternative, and it's kind of the vibe that I enjoy when I'm like lying in bed at 2 a.m. with my headphones on, just like vibing out. Um, so that's what I create on my own, and what comes out when I've worked with other people is definitely different. Um,
mm,
and I love to create my own sound, but then with Chonny, so I've been working
mm.
with my brother because he's moved back from LA temporarily. So I'm like, brother, let me get
Yeah,
you.
get in there.
Yeah,
Opportunity.
it's so great, and because he's like so much faster than me, and
Mm,
so much more experienced than me. It's a very quick, much more of a faster process. And so with Chonny, I feel like, not to pigeonhole it, but so far that's been more of an R&B
mm,
poppy vibe, and
mm,
a bit lighter than what I produce on my own.
mm. So, uh, so Shawnee is the change in the name, and is that the like moving forward, or is it just like at this current time and where you're at, that's the type of music that you're trying to put out there? Uh, there's no going to be revisiting Chantal Renee, that type of music. I don't want to be like, when you're Chantal Renee, you do this, or that's in the past, or like do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you,
um, I know what you mean. Yeah, no, so I definitely am not gonna box it in.
yeah,
I think that what's coming out right now is what it is,
mm,
and
mm,
I'm enjoying that, and it's so cool to be able to be working with my bro. Um, but I definitely think that there'll be a time when I'll have to be producing my own stuff as well. So I think that that will come through as well. But I also just feel like art. Someone said to me like art represents a moment in time, right? So
mm,
it's if it's authentic and organic, then it's gonna depend on where you're at, really coming from inside you. So yeah, it could go anywhere, but at the moment I'm enjoying working with my bro.
That's
I've
cool.
got another single with Gibbs that we're wanting to release hopefully next month or sometime soon. And that's another fun one. So yeah.
So as a writer, what's your creative process when it comes to uh, writing music? You're working with your brother currently. Are you co-writing? You've worked with Gibby. Do you co-write, or what is your process?
Yeah, it can be different every time. So when I'm writing on my own, that is generally going to be like when I'm in my own. Like there's something about nighttime, eh? When you go into a different space and like the world's kind of stopped, so you can like be. So when I'm writing on my own, I like to just kind of be in my bed with a book and a pen, and just slowly like feel it out. Go into my own vibe. But when I've been working with my brother, yes, we've been co-writing, so that's a whole different thing. And because he's used to doing sessions all the time in LA with other artists, that's how he works anyway. And so I'm like, he'll be producing, and then I've got my laptop out, and I'm like, okay, write. But I'm a very feely person, so I'm like,
Right.
oh, pressure. And so he'll be like doing the beat, and then he'll sit back and like look at me as in like, got anything? And I'm like, cool. But no, like once we get a flow going, then it's good as well. But he'll chip in here and there, and that's I think one of the beauty of working with family as well, is you feel comfortable enough to just be like, yo, can you like help me, or what do you think of this? And we can be honest. Well, I and then with Gibby, yes, we've co-written a couple of our tracks. I think usually I've like written my part and then he'll write his part. Or I've written my part and then I ask him to do a rap and he says, oh, can you write it then? So I write it. And I'm like, this is how it goes. This is the flow.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you need the music to write, or do you need the track to write, or can you just write and then, because people have different preferences, right?
Yeah.
What's your vibe?
Yeah, I think that when I'm working on my own, I'll start laying something down, just some kind of sound, so I can feel what it is, and then kind of go from there. And I might like come back and do more production, and then come back to the writing. But also, yes, there's been like instances when I've had a poetry piece that I'd written to be spoken, and then had made a beat, and then like taken from that. And made that into the song. So I think it can go either way. I don't have a set process.
Can you write a song with a character in mind? Like, let's say you hear a beat and you're like, oh, this could work for this. What I'm trying to get at is like storytelling through music. If it's not writing about your own something that you've experienced personally, are you able to build a character in mind that perhaps fits a theme that kind of blends in real nice with the beat or track that you're listening to?
Yeah. Yeah, I think with Rose Tints, I did that, because that's not my story. And I think that came from, like, Troy had made the beat, and then I'd written down, like, a couple of lines, and then gone into a co-writing space and gone, "Okay, maybe this can be about, like, this idea." And so we'd set the theme, and then with the beat, I kinda, created in my mind that person and the person that she's talking about. So, yeah, I do think so.
That's cool. You know what I really like? You mentioned spoken word before. I really like that track that you released as Chantal Renee, that the song I Pray because Little Boy, because it's got spoken word in there. That is a really it's heavy,
Mm.
it's a real heavy track, but I like that. Like I like there's the singing, you've got the singing element, there's rap, but the spoken word, it's so powerful. um yeah, I really like that
Yeah,
track.
thank you. Yeah, that piece is really special to me. Um, I wrote that, I think it'll be around maybe 8 or 9 years ago now.
Mm,
So it was something that was a long time in the making, and it kind of like evolved into what it is now. Um, and yeah, so that track's about like mental and emotional
mm,
abuse. Um, so yes, it does deal with very heavy topic. Um, but what I liked about the process as well is that I got to do it with Gibbs, and then had my brother producing, and also amazing producer Chonny producing that as well. So it was co-produced, and then
mm,
had Gibbs and I as well. And so what I loved about that is that, even though it was about this bad relationship, and the male in that instance wasn't good, but I had three strong, awesome males
mm,
around me supporting that kaupapa. And so that, yeah, it was a really interesting journey. So I wrote it and then ended up performing it,
mm.
and then yeah, got Gibbs on board, and then we ended up performing it in Parliament at one point,
Ooh.
which was so interesting,
Wow.
performing that in front of a bunch of politicians or whatever. And then, yeah, we started slowly creating the track. So it was half made in LA, half made here. It took
Oh
a while. Love
man.
to do a music video for it one day.
Mm. Let's talk about Rose Tints. You released in September, features Villivo. I hope I said that wrong. I hope I said that right. Forgive me if I said it wrong. Let's talk about that track. As you said, it's not your experience, but how did that track, or that collab come about?
Honestly, Rose Tints is probably the fastest track that from start to finish it I've ever been a part of, which was cool. So that kind of, we started that not long after my brother moved home.
Mm,
Just said, let's do a session. Okay, he made the beat. Boom, cool. We started writing, and then I think we tracked the vocals in that session as well. And then we just had a verse missing, and he was like, "You just need to write your other verse, and then we'll record it and then mix it, and it'll be done." I was like, "Okay." And then I was like, "Wait, what if I don't have to write another verse?
mm, mm, mm.
What if I can get somebody else?" I was like, "It's be cool with a rapper." And I've never actually met Villieville before. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's one of those ones, which is quite cool, that you can do that.
Yeah.
But he is friends with Gibbs and another one of my friends. So I had heard of him and listened to a couple of his songs, which I really liked. Like, they were my liked songs. So I was like, oh, I wonder if he'd be keen. Like,
Mm.
nerve-wracking, but I just put it out there, and yeah, he was keen. He got his vocals down quick too, which I love. Love having proactive artists.
Yeah.
Not always the case. And then yeah, we got it done. So that was really cool. That was the process of that.
Can we expect an album soon, or maybe just maybe an EP? Can we, do you have a lot that you've written that you're kind of like, I've got enough here to perhaps put something together? Not to say that you should just put something together for the sake of putting something together, because that's not cool. But do you know what I mean? Is there something that we can look forward to, or something that you're working towards?
Yeah. So I think the next thing we've got is the release with Gibby and I. That song's called Swim on My Own. But yeah, I do have it in my mind to do either an album or an EP. And I do have some tracks, some songs that are sitting there that I need to like go over and put some more touches on and revisit. So it's definitely in my mind, and it's something that I want to think about more. So at this stage, I'm releasing singles, but yeah, that's something that I'm going to chip away at as well.
That's cool. I'm excited. I'm still trying to figure out your sound, and I'm excited to know, like, I'm excited to think, oh, I wonder what's coming next. You've got a track of Gibby. Like, I can't wait. Like, I really can't wait. When that happens, it's gonna be good. That I know. What kind of music moves your soul? Like, really kind of gets you into that buzz.
Like I said, I'm very quite melodramatic.
It's the actress part in you.
I know, like I'll put songs on and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh." So I'll get down to like some Celine Dion ballads, Mariah Carey, and all of that stuff. I'm like, yes, I can't sing like that, but I wish I try. But then I love, at the moment I'm really vibing on, I don't know what the genre is called. I guess maybe it's like an alternative R&B, soul-y kind of lo-fi vibes. That feels nice. But then, like I said, when I do the midnight headphones in, like my bed, it can be like get a bit deeper, and I don't know what that genre is called either. James Blake or yeah, I don't know.
So you write music, but have you dabbled in like script writing plays? I was just thinking about the performance side, as an actress, or even getting behind the scenes. Like, is that something you are proactive in, or is it more like, does it cross over, or is it just singer-songwriter and it's more about behind the camera as opposed to writing scripts and things like that?
I think it definitely crosses over for a lot of actors. Like I know that a lot of actors are, not always given all the opportunities, so creating their own work, which I really admire. I have, in terms of what I've done, I have written a short play, which I put on years ago, like during Phoenix Days, and that was at the Phase 1 Festival, I believe it was called. And that play that I wrote was in my early 20s, and that was quite heavy as well. So that touched on the topic of abortion, which can be quite confronting, obviously. It was received really well when it was at Phase 1, that was in West Auckland. And then it got put into what's the Short and Sweet Festival in town. And in town, different crowd,
Right.
West Auckland town, it got slammed like in the reviews. And I totally understand that now. Like I was going into a very confronting place. So, but overall, that was a really cool experience, being able to write my own play. I wrote the song that was in it. There was a spoken word piece in that as well. And for a writer to be able to put something on paper and then see it brought to life is just something so special. So yeah, I want to do more of that. I'd love to write a short film. So that's another thing I want to put in the pipeline.
So if funding and access to resources wasn't a barrier, what story then would you like to tell in that short film or movie length film? What story would you like to see on that big screen?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think a couple that come to my mind when I was quite ill with my autoimmune disease, and I said that I was quite bedridden. So some days I was in bed for about 20 hours a day, and I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and I've also now got ankylosing spondylitis, which is like a arthritis in the spine, and da 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 da. Anyway, when I was in bed in that phase, it was about 4 years of my life. Horrific. It's just such a dark place, and you're suffering so much, like all the symptoms that you have going on. And I just remember being like, oh, please God, like if I can get better, I'll let this be known, like I'll help. Because not many people know about it. So I think maybe a story around that, and what that the reality story of that. And my daughter also has alopecia, and that's another thing that I think is quite misunderstood or not known much about. So a story around that as well. However, I don't want them to be too dark, so find a way to make them light.
Oh, you had me thinking about so many things right then and there. I was just like, I was thinking about, it was when you said like, just going back to, that, the story you had written years ago and how it was slammed. And then I was just thinking about right then when you said, don't want to make it too dark, but light. And it made me think about, the stories that we tell, or the stories that our people tell. And why can't these stories, like what the experience that you've had and the experience of your daughter, why can't they be normalized? Why do we have to make it less light, less dark, more light? It's sorry, I'm getting a bit off tangent, but I was just thinking, these are important stories, that need to be told, because there are probably audiences out there, or people who, well, not probably, there are people
Yeah.
who experience such things. And so their voices, their narratives need to be heard as well. And I think a lot of the times, this is just me being bots, is that society, judges like, this is too heavy. Oh, you need to change that because you got to think about the audience. But I guess what I like about, our Moana Pacifica creatives, that space is that, really just pushing boundaries, telling stories as we want them to be told. I just want you to be encouraged. Like, it's just, I know earlier we were talking about imposter syndrome, off camera and things like that. I know you had mentioned it a few times, and I was like, really, Shani, stop it. But
Oh, yeah.
it's a real, I mean, when you were talking about that, I was like, oh yeah, I totally get that. Like that makes so much sense to me. Like I get why you would kind of like feel that way. Okay, I've just gone kind of all over the place then, but
No,
those were
following.
some of the things.
But
I was
yeah,
just,
it's so true though. We do struggle with imposter syndrome, and I think I think that I have to remember as well that some of the things that I do or have done, like people from my small town or like younger me, or those are big things,
yes.
and they are a big deal. But I think because we also look upwards, we're also constantly looking up to the next level. So we're always
Mm,
feeling a little bit under, but we
mm,
also have to remember like where we're coming from and like how much we've grown. Um, and I'm telling myself that as well, because I really have to remember that. And then, yeah, I think in terms of the stories and why shouldn't we,
mm,
I think what resonated with me with what you said then is you're talking about people's voices need to be heard. And yeah, that did encourage me, because I am reminded it's not just about me and it's not just my story, but it is all those people that know that hardship,
mm.
and that are going through that and that don't have the ability to express that. That's so true. Um, I know that when I've like done poems around both of those topics, like my autoimmune disease and my daughter's alopecia, so many people have responded like in my DMs or like online or whatever, and it's made an impact on them, and it's important to them. And I have to think of like, if I was in the position back then and I heard that, I would have been crying because somebody understands me. We don't get that. So yes, you're right. I do have to remember that.
And I mean, your journey is one of resilience. Like that's something that you cannot forget. Like, and yes, when you think about, reflection and look at where you came from and where you are now, I mean, that's not just something that you overcome. You remind yourself that's resilience, that's village love, some family love, support. That's just that every day is pushing and trying to get better. And so it's those things that remind yourself, keep telling yourself, you've overcome so many difficult steps along the way. And people, that inspires people, it resonates with people. And needs to be heard, needs to be told, because those, naturally it really kind of like tugs at human emotion, but that's what brings people together. And you can be a voice. It's empowering. It's when I'm listening to you and thinking, hearing your stories, you've dropped so many gems throughout this podcast, and I'm just thinking, man, this is what Chonny's been doing like these years. This is where you've been, and this is what you've overcome. It's really, honestly, I'm just like but blown away, feeling overwhelmed, feeling inspired, feeling empowered. And I'm just like, it's such an honor that you're in this space to share such a personal, hardship, personal journey, that you're still, still fighting and still working to overcome. It's really straight to the fatu is what I want to say, sis. Right here. So self-care, I ask this of everyone who comes on because everyone's always super busy, doing their thing. How do you take care of yourself outside of your mama hat, when you're in front or behind the camera, just music? Like, what are some other things that you like to do to really kind of like treat yourself and spoil yourself?
Yeah, this is something that's become really important to me recently. I think because when I stepped away from the costume stuff, that was also because it was to chase my dreams, but it was also because of my health stuff. It was taxing on my body. So it was also meant that I wanted to focus on getting that right. And the other thing was that, like, if I'm gonna work crazy hours and I'm gonna really, put my body on the line, then I'm gonna make sure it's actually for what I love. So that's why that decision was made as well. So yeah, self-care became a huge priority for me. And the other thing I have to remember is it's not selfish. The more I look after myself, the more I can look after the people around me. And that's a work in progress. But I love journaling. So I do that every morning. It's like my non-negotiable. When I wake up in the morning, I do my morning pages, 3 pages, stream of consciousness writing, paragraph of gratitude at the end, and my intention for the day. And then I do like 15 minutes of yoga. And that just, it's better than waking up and then, oh gosh, I'm in the day already. If I can get to the gym in the morning, then that's cool as well. Walks, going for walks, listening to music or podcasts. I love to do that as well. And then in terms of spoiling myself, I really love a good massage. Oh, that's my favorite.
Oh, I love that. If a book was written about your life, at any point in time, what would it be called, do you
Oh
think?
my gosh. Um, oh, that's such a hard question.
That's okay. That can be something that you take away today and think about,
Yeah,
and
I
you
think
know.
I think about that. Yeah,
And so, do you have any book recommendations?
I do. I do. So,
Yay!
this book, I had a little. I was having a little look at some of your videos, and then I saw this book on your banner, and
Oh,
my auntie wrote it. My dad's sister wrote it. So this is
is it? Yeah, I was thinking. Wait. Cook Island Rider. Cook Island Rider.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
Pa'u. And my auntie wrote it, which is so cool, and it's short stories,
Yeah.
amazing writing, and so cool for me to read. Obviously, because my dad's passed away,
Mm.
I can't ask him about things anymore. But I think it's like the first story is like loosely based on their family, their siblings and parents, and that was really cool. So that's my first recommendation.
Oh
So proud of my auntie.
man.
Yeah, and then I also wanted to recommend this book. It's by Dominic Hoey.
Yes, I have not brought a copy yet, but I know I follow him and love his stuff. And I was like, I need to get it. Maybe when I come home in December, I will buy
Yeah,
it when I'm at home.
definitely do it. It's such a good read, and I think that it needs to be made into a movie, and I hope that it does. But
Mm.
yeah, Poor People with Money by Dominic Hoey. And yeah, then my current read is this. It's called The Answer.
Ooh.
And it says how to discover what you want from life, then make it happen. So I'm like counting on this book to change my life.
Okay, oh man, love those book recommendations. Goals and dreams. What are some goals you're still working towards that you can share?
Okay. Yeah, so I've got a few like short-term goals that I'm working towards. So some of those are just finishing songs that I've got in the pipeline. I'd like to finish the first draft of a short film that I've started writing. I've got them on my wall. Yeah, and then I think in the long term, like big goals, dreams that I love, that I just it'd be amazing to be like the lead on a feature film, and maybe put on a whole show that's with spoken word and theatre and music all mixed in together. I'd love to do that, based on what I've got written so far. I'd love to do a show on those.
Okay.
And just to get the body and mind right.
Mm. Maybe one day you'll even write a children's book, or maybe after chatting with your auntie, be inspired to write a novel, maybe write your own memoir. Who knows?
It's in the family, eh?
For real. Man. Oh my goodness. Chonny, oh I'm just a bit, yeah. um I guess, we're at the part of the show where I like to give guests just final words where, words of encouragement. It could be a quote or something that inspires you just to share with the audience. Before we do that, like, there's so much I've taken away from today, so many gems that you've dropped, life lessons. I really appreciate you for being open to coming into the space and sharing a bit of your journey, a bit of who you are, where you've come from. And I really just want to wish you all the best. I hope that uh, the remainder of this year, because we're nearing Christmas, it's getting a bit scary now. We're getting that much closer to December and the end of the year. Wishing you all the best with your little family, health wise. Just keep going and just, yeah, just really I'll be watching, looking out for new music drops, and yeah, just keep going, stay resilient, keep aspiring to be the best you, and stay safe out there. Take care. It's been an honor to have you on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you so much, sis, and all the same to you. Like, this has been such a cool chat. I've loved it. It's been so good to catch up with you. And yeah, my first ever podcast. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor. It really is. Like, stories need to be told, and to be honest, like, on this podcast, stories have been shared that I think that will really resonate and just help others, help someone else who is going through something. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it's important what you're doing. So, like, thank you for creating that platform as well. Life really is short. So it's now or never. So I think you can either spend your time working really, really hard to create somebody else's dream, or you can spend your time working really, really hard to create your own dream. So both are going to be hard, but man, life's short. So choose your own dream, I think.